Welcome to Spinning Back Clique, where each week here at MMA Junkie, we take a spin through the biggest stories in MMA. And on today's episode, we got a lot to to discuss here with UFC Vancouver. Brendan Allen, he's a party pooper. We also have a ton of fight bookings that pretty much close out the rest of the year. And of course, UFC 321 is this Saturday. A proper undisputed heavyweight champion will be making his first title defense. All right. I'm Gorgeous George, and look at the distinguished panel we have for you today. Goes from MMA Junkie Radio. He's here in Las Vegas. Danny Segura, he's down in Miami, the 305 representative. And in Beantown, it's Nolan King, the Boston shot caller. Let's welcome back Cole Coffee. He's on the ones and twos. But before we start the show, hit that like button. It triggers the algorithm. Blah, blah, blah. You might hear me say that a few times this show, but it means a lot. All right, guys, let's get into it, man. Brendan Allen, what a party pooper. This was supposed to be maybe RDR's chance, guys, to maybe supersede Nasruddin Imavov, or at least start a conversation, right, as to who's next versus Khamzat Chimaev. That did not happen. Danny Segura, talk about that main event out in Vancouver. It started pretty decently for RDR, and my, how things changed in round two.
Yeah. I did not see this coming whatsoever. I thought RDR was the biggest lock on the card, and Brendan Allen went in there, and he looked like he was the one originally scheduled to headline this fight, and RDR looked like the one that took the fight on short notice. It was a complete shock. I was not really expecting that, and man, props to Brendan Allen. Probably the more exciting result would have been RDR to win and kind of spice things up at 185. And then we got that debate between Imavov and RDR. But obviously, we don't get that now. But still, how can you hate on somebody like Brendan Allen, who takes the fight on short notice, a complete professional, makes the weight, and just has a world-class performance? And honestly, I told you this, GG, getting ready for the show yesterday and making the rundown. Brendan Allen is kind of growing on me. He is kind of becoming a figure at 185, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, no doubt. And you know, as frequently as RDR has fought, guys, when I looked at Brendan Allen's schedule the last 5 years, I mean, he's at least 3 of the last 5 years, he's gone 3 times per year. He stays ready. And yeah, I mean, and he's got that bad boy side to him. You guys all saw what happened down at the Hard Rock in South Florida against Marvin Vettori. He'll let them go at any time. Nolan King, let's get your reaction to the main event in UFC Vancouver.
Yeah, Brendan Allen just stepping up, stepping in, and really inserting himself into the title conversation. You know, I don't think many of us think that he's going to be next, but he's certainly in the discussion now, right? Stepped into a big moment, looked great. I think the way he played the post and pre-fight interviews, he did well, where he was trying to be reasonable with people, like, hey, like, listen, I know I'm not really, one step away, but like, I'm going to step into this opportunity. I'm going to prove to people that I should be in that discussion. And he went out there and did that. I thought his like post-fight interview sort of call out, laying out the scenarios thing was great. And just the performance too. I mean, just totally dominant. It wasn't a case of, we left that fight thinking that it was, close, or, there was any debate of who won. After some mishaps there in the first round, just total domination. His game plan was great. And when you go out there and you break the guy that's, really surging up the ladder, I think it does a lot for your career and your legitimacy as well. So he's been a guy, I think he's flown under a lot of our radars. Perhaps he doesn't get enough respect because he's one of those guys that we see him take, 2-3 steps forward and then 1 step back. We've seen him lose a bunch of times, but he's certainly right there, man. That's no joke, that win. And we'll see what happens next. Middleweight's a little bit clearer than it was maybe on Friday. But still, there's some figuring out that has to do as to what the next couple steps are at 185.
Goes maybe Nasruddin Imavov should be sending a early Christmas gift to Brendan Allen, huh? That kind of solidified that. But man, it was I thought RDR in that first round when he got him down, I thought, oh man, this one's gonna be a piece of cake. It did not turn out that way. Your reaction goes?
I think we all knew Brendan was a dog coming into this, right? But I don't think anybody thought it would play out the way it did. And, RDR's kind of had his reasons for why he performed the way he did. But that being said, round 1 was his. He had an excellent opportunity from the get-go. The position that he got, he probably could have finished that one. but his body just broke down. It just gave up. And when you think about it, there are probably a bunch of things. He's laid out what he thinks it was, but it could be taking all these fights one after another. One camp after another, one weight cut after another. All that could have just led to his body completely falling apart. But I don't want that to take away from the fact that Brendan Allen, even though in a very dark time when he had terrible position, he found a way to get through it. He fought through it. And, it makes you wonder, if this is the Brendan Allen that shows up to every fight, how far can he actually take this? I mean, I thought that was a really, really good performance on his part. Going back to RDR, I thought, his coach, you look at fighters all the time, right? And you see, like last spinning back, like we were talking about some of the effects that these fighters face later on in their lives. This may not be a popular decision right now, what happened with RDR, but his coach is looking out for him. And I think it probably was the right decision, because that guy just did not have anything left. And a guy like Brendan Allen, he could have made that even worse.
Yeah, he's been catching a lot of flack for quitting on the stool and things like that. I thought I saw some social media posts that said something about norovirus, a broken hand, but I still think the frequency of fights had something to do with it.
That was a fake account that seems to do a very good job of impersonating him after every fight. I've seen that account trick people pretty consistently. So you weren't alone. I saw thousands of likes and retweets on that. So.
Okay. All right. Well, so he just got his ass kicked, I guess.
Something else and he didn't say, but yeah, I mean, that was not RDR.
It kind of would have fit what we saw. We saw a good first round, and then he went down. So I fell for it. I pulled the Joe Rogan. I just fell for the first thing I read.
But we've seen him kind of like fade off as the fight goes, but he's found a way to get through it.
Right.
This particular one seemed like it came a little bit earlier than normal. Yeah, like he found a way, right? But this fight, it seemed like it came on a little bit stronger than normal and a little earlier than normal.
From what we've seen in the UFC, you have to preface that, because if you go back to one championship in his rematch with Anatoly Malikin, he was getting beat up. It was a high-paced fight. He was gassing. And in the third round, not even in the championship rounds, in the third round, the referee stands him up because there's not a lot of action, and RDR is so exhausted that he cannot get up. He kind of stumbles, like rolls over back to his knees, and the ref's like, you got to get up on your feet and fight, or not, I'm going to call a fight. He just didn't have it in him. He just didn't have the energy, and then the fight gets called off. So this is not the first time it happens. I had picked that up, but over the course through like his UFC run, we've seen him kind of surpass that, especially in the Robert Whittaker fight where he went all 5 rounds and he really had to dig deep and got rocked in this. But then again, this resurfaced. So just to put that out there, it is something that he has gone through before.
Check out this comment from West Coast. Fighters and coaches need to be quit making excuses for losing and take it like a man. Can I buy a couple vowels and consonants there? That was a tough one, West Coast. Make it easy for me here, and we'll bring you on the show. Go ahead, Gus.
I was going to say we've kind of been seeing a lot of this lately, right? With Peter Yan, I can't remember somebody else just within the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, it wasn't necessarily RDR. I think it's just the coach trying to protect his fighter, and RDR shouldn't have put him in that situation, right? I mean, at this high level with this much stakes, you can't do that. You just can't.
Defense though, like he's got to get up, man. At some point, just rolling around on the ground. Let's say he took no damage. He ain't winning the round 10-9 because the other guy's on top. They're going to give it to someone. They're going to give the 10 and the 9 to someone. And just rolling around on it didn't look like anything was close. That inverted triangle, maybe, I don't know. I mean, the announcers get excited over anything they see. It's almost over, and then we realize that they're not really in any type of trouble. But just RDR's fighter IQ, if he's not on top, it looks like he goes from a top 3 fighter at middleweight to top 100. And like Danny pointed out, he's made mistakes in other fights too, where now the cardio, like, come on, like if you're going to fight for titles, you got to do these 5 rounders. You got to be strong. It's going to be 2-2 going in around 5. Nolan, I apologize. Go ahead.
No, my fault. I was going to say there wouldn't have been, if you had told me before this fight that he would lose, right? I don't think there would be something that would suck the wind out of the sails as much as the performance that happened on Saturday. Like, this is I would say it's a problem. Like, I have no problem with fighters stopping on the stool, whatever. But the fact that, as Danny said, this has happened before, now it's happened again. Like, there wasn't much of a fight that he put up, like, sure, the first round, he had his moments, but after that, it was not even remotely competitive. So it's unfortunate, because I think a lot of us were pretty pumped about seeing him progress towards the title and doing all this kind of weird, strange fighting that the weird, strange fighting that he does. But yeah, man, I think that was pretty much like the worst outcome. Like, even if he had gone out there and got head kicked in 40 seconds, I think we would be able to say, oh, like, that was maybe an odd moment, or at least he was exciting, or he went for it. But to just get completely blanketed like that and just kind of break is problematic going forward, I think, for people to get excited about him again.
Danny, is any of this on the UFC, by the way? Should they know better than to book a guy for the 6th time? Even Kevin Holland looked pretty flat. I mean, Kevin Holland pulled off a 5-0 one year, like in 2019, I believe, or 2020. So, but like, they'll even say it when it comes to concussions. Hey, get some time off. They did it with Volkanovski or whatever. What about just these weight cuts and this frequency of fight? I get it. They need fighters, and they're gangsters. They're willing to go, but still, you get a flat performance like this, you're like, what is that?
Yeah, and I've heard from fighters before how sometimes, like, the UFC throws them a lot of fights, and you kind of have to take them, or else you don't know when the next one's coming. And training camps, weight cuts add up, and then all of a sudden you see a weird, out of character performance, and it's due exactly to the high activity level and the amount of mileage they're putting in their body in such a short amount of time. So that definitely could be a factor. But back to what I was speaking before, we've seen this before, and at one championship, one of RDR's biggest complaints was that he wasn't really getting much activity. So I think that could play a part of it, but I don't think it was solely responsible for the performance that we saw. So yeah, I think it's one of those things where RDR has to go back, really take a good look in the mirror and see what he can adjust. And it's something he needs to adjust now. He's not a young cat, and if he wants to fight for the belt, I think that's definitely still in the cards. First loss in the UFC, he was on quite a streak. But if he wants to become a champion, if he wants to be in that championship level, he's got to get that taken care of, and he's got to get that taken care of now, because he doesn't have a ton of time left.
Yeah, and not to skip around here too much, but how much do you guys think Anthony Hernandez is kicking himself that he wasn't able to fight? Oh my
God!
I think he would have probably implemented an almost exact same game plan to what Brendan Allen did, right? And we know how Fluffy is so good at that. So I think we're talking about who, Brendan Allen's the winner, RDR's the loser, but situationally, I think that's going to be tough for Anthony Hernandez. I know he's not a guy that likes to watch fights, but I'm assuming maybe he tuned into that one. That might have been a tough pill to swallow.
It would have been way worse. It would have been like times 50. Like, if that fight lasted 3 rounds, right? It didn't go into the 4th, or it didn't go into the 5th. Correct me here. 4th, right? 4th. Yeah. 4th. Yeah, that fight would have been over in 2 rounds at most, because Fluffy just sucks the life out of you. So, yeah, that was a terrible matchup for RDR. Obviously, hindsight 2020.
We do these awards, comeback of the year. How about Brendan Allen loses to Imavov and Fluffy? Now, Fluffy was just in 2025. Imavov was at the end of last year. And then all of a sudden, you got to look in the mirror, like you said, Danny, or one of you guys, what's going on here? And then later in the year, he beats Vittori, respected top 10 guy, and then now RDR. And all of a sudden, we're saying he could be the backup for the title fight. He's next for Imavov and Hamzat, whoever comes out of that. Great comeback story, man, for Brendan Allen. He was Johnny on the spot, but I'm telling you, those breaks are important. I've seen sports evolve, guys, over years. Pitchers don't go all 9 innings. That's very rare, right? The coaches manage them. Even in the NFL, you don't get that guy that carries it 30 to 40 times every game to get his 100 yards. No, they distribute the carries. They bring in fresh bodies. I'm telling you, you got to rest these guys at some point. You got to rest them from themselves. I don't fault that coach one bit for having him, for stopping him when he did the other day. But I just think he probably should have said, hey, we're going to skip on this fight. We'll be back in 2026. That Whitaker fight should have been the wake-up call. Hey, real quick, guys. So what is next for Brendan Allen? Nolan?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I kind of like the Hernandez fight. I know maybe I'm in the minority for that to run that, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Imavov's definitely next, for
sure.
Hamzat. So that would be the fight that I would make. But you could go in a number of different directions. I mean, Dricus, right where you put him in. Yeah. So I don't know. I would lean Hernandez.
What's next for RDR after some rest goes?
Well, he's got to figure this whole thing out, right? Like the same way we said for Brendan Allen, a good performance can maybe leapfrog a little bit. Whatever your distance is to the champion. If it's 5 fights, now it's 4 because you did the UFC a favor and you looked pretty good doing it. Sort of the reverse happened to RDR. Now, instead of just maybe losing a couple slots, I think he tumbled pretty far. So he's probably got to take somebody in the 8 or 9 range, something like that, and build himself back up.
Maybe a Kyle Barallo or something.
Yeah.
All right, Danny. Amon Zahavi defeated Marlon Chito Vera. Little controversy, I think. It was a close enough fight that we can call it that. Certainly not a robbery, but what did you think of that fight? What's next for Zahavi?
For me, there was nothing controversial about this fight. It was a very close and competitive fight. The only round that was a lock was the second, which went for Chito Vera because he obviously got the knockdown. But the first and third were really competitive, and I scored both of those rounds for Amon Zahavi. So I did ultimately agree with the majority of the judges scoring the fight 29-28 in favor of Amon Zahavi. But look, if Chito would have won 29-28, I don't think it's that crazy to say that maybe he would have picked up the first or third round, especially the first. I think that one was a more competitive one. But it was a fight that I feel like we kind of all expected this. Amon Zahavi's not much of a finisher. Chito hasn't really been finishing in his last fights. He's also hard to finish as well. Amon also hard to finish as well. He proved that against Aldo. So we knew this was going to be close. We knew this was going to go to the cards. And yeah, it was just a matter of who did that little extra. And I think it was Amon Zahavi.
Yeah. Boy, he's going to take the long road, though, to get to a title fight because it's decisions. You know, his fighting style leaves a little bit. Great fighter IQ. He knows how to steal rounds, win rounds. You know, and things like that. And he's taking out some big names. But when you beat Aldo and Vera and a few other guys, it's like, why aren't you here? Why aren't we talking about you here? Like I say, I think it's just the fighting style.
That might be the best thing for him, though. When you think about how crazy it is at that top, and let those guys take each other out for a little bit and just
maybe.
Up there. I think it might actually work out for him.
Maybe, yeah. And then you catch them towards the end of when they're all punched out, and which is kind of what he's doing, honestly. I don't know. It's a weird strategy, but it's kind of working. Next for Chito, Nolan, where would you book him with? He's a popular figure. I think he's still good to put on a card. People get excited about him, you know, and he did look okay at times. It's just he doesn't give you a full 15 minutes.
Yeah, I would take. I mean, he already took a lot of time off before this fight, so that's not necessarily going to help him. It's tough, man. You know, I think he's, you know, the last few and this skid that he's on, he really has not looked great. Like he's just been very inactive. I mean, that's always been a little bit of a problem where he's been gun shy at times, but it's just been round after round now, I think, of him kind of getting picked apart. And even the fight going back to before the O'Malley fight, there was a lot of people that thought Pedro Munoz won that fight against him in Boston. So this is not an ideal skid. He's still like relatively young for how long he's been in the sport. He's only 32. So I don't know, man. Like if he was a different size of some sort, I would say, oh, maybe he can move up to featherweight and have some success there. But I don't know, some sort of reset fight. I don't, would you give him, you know, will the UFC try to give him like a David Martinez, try to do the whole, you know, surging youngster versus the vet? I think that's kind of in their playbook at this point. So maybe I would do something like that. But I think guys like Lockdog, guys like Martinez, like they're going to be favored against him now. So I'm not sure. I would give him some sort of reset. I'm assuming against a guy either at the bottom of the rankings or right outside.
Goes Manon Fior defeated Jasmine Jasdavicius. She made quick work of her. Now, she did fight for a title earlier this year, so I don't think she's in line for a title shot again. One more fight, maybe? What do you think? Great performance, though.
Well, I mean, she wants to get right back in there, right? You can't ignore her. That was a really good performance over Jasmine Jasdavicius, who was really, really tough. It's unfortunate that the fight didn't play out a little bit longer because I think it would have been a really good one. But wanting that quick turnaround, I think she's sort of accepted the fact that she's going to have to work her way back. Now, back to what? That's the question. We don't know what's going to be waiting around the time that it is time for her to come back. But if she can keep fighting like this and get stoppages like that, I think she'll earn another shot.
Yeah, Silva's booked. Blanchfield Cortez. We'll see what comes out of maybe the Silva Barber fight. I think is that who's fighting?
Keep
Carini Silva and Macy. No, wait. I should have looked this up. I'm sorry. I know Karine Silva's got a fight booked, and it's toward the end of the year. Is it Macy Barber? Do you guys know? Yeah. Okay. That one, I think maybe Furo can lock in there. Blanchfield's also got Cortez. Blanchfield got stopped by Furo, but she's working her way back. She already beat Rose. Flyweight division, a little bit interesting. And then, of course, we got the title fight. Who knows what happens there? You got a long-time reigning champ. If she were to lose, does she get an immediate rematch? Who knows? They already tied things up for 2 years when it was Grasso and Shevchenko. The UFC might want to move on from that. Hopefully, we get something definitive between Shevchenko and Zhang Weili. Real quick, guys, on the way out, Dan Mergliotta under fire a little bit. He stopped what we thought was a fight, but didn't wave his arms. He just got in the way of two fighters. So the general public, including myself, thought, oh, this fight was over because of the fact that Matt Frevola was getting beat up. In fact, it wasn't. And so the fight continued. Imagine both guys, letting off some steam, some adrenaline, and then they have to go back in there and still fight for another 10 minutes. Not to mention, an injury could have taken place or anything. But I guess, guys, at the end of the day, he just didn't think the fight was worthy of stopping. He just thought he heard a horn and was ending the round. What did you guys think of all that? Dan the Tan's had a couple controversies lately. Danny?
Yeah, he is not looking good in terms of his job as a referee. And I also want to make a distinction. I'm sure he's a great guy. He looks like a great guy. I don't know him personally, but we do have to separate the two, right? This is just a professional matter. This is not a personal attack to his character or anything. But, he does have a job to do, and we all have jobs to do in this society, and we all go under review if we're not really performing the way that we should be. And that's no different to refereeing, especially refereeing, because obviously the consequences of that is somebody's health or somebody's career going a different direction. There's a lot on the line there. So to me, that looked like a stoppage, and he kind of like the Jim Perdio situation a few weeks back where he stopped the fight, but then the fighter stood up and he didn't know what to do. And then he just kind of let it continue and let the fight let the situation take its course, and didn't really sort of handle things the way it should be. So, terrible refereeing that night from Dan. I think the public let him know. And that wasn't the only incident as well, right?
Right.
I just think he needs to unclog his ears. In San Antonio, he couldn't hear the buzzer or the horn, and here he thought he heard it. So, but I've always thought he's one of the top refs. He's just kind of on a cold streak right now. But listen, we could talk about that one forever. Any thoughts, Goes or Nolan? I should give you a fair shot. This is kind of a big deal before we move on because we're running a little behind.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I can't remember a time where I've ever heard of a referee hearing a bell that did not go off. I think that causes, I thought about it a lot more since then. I don't know what you would do in that instance if you were the commission. Like, what can you do? Because the error was on him thinking the round ended. It wasn't an error with the stoppage, theoretically. So it puts everybody in a really tough scenario. But between that and the Kevin Holland thing, I think it was just not a good night for him. And the thing about him, like you said, George, like I think there's a lot of times where he does do a good job, and he, has to handle heavyweights a lot of times. Historically, he's been decent, but I think when he messes up, it seems to be very egregious. And I think when you're dealing with, obviously health and safety, when you're dealing with, things that directly impact the outcome of a fight like that, I think there needs to be some sort of accountability, and we just don't have that. I reached out to the commission on fight night about this to see if there was anything they wanted to clarify. They have not responded. So I just like to see some more accountability from the top down.
Yeah, and I wasn't clowning, I wasn't joking. I'm telling you, I can't tell the story now, but if you've never had your ears unclogged, you think you're like the bionic woman back in the day. That was her strength, where all of a sudden you can hear what you couldn't hear for a long time. Makes a difference, but I'm a little concerned. Remember San Antonio? What was that fight, Danny? That
David Martinez and Rob Font. The bell rang, and he let the fight. And David Martinez kept punching Rob Font.
He didn't hear
down. And he let the fight go on like 3 seconds. And the commentary booth is like, "Stop the fight! Stop the fight! It's over." And Dan didn't intervene until like 3-4 seconds later.
Stop the fight. You know who that is, Goes?
Rocky.
Rocky's
one of the Rocky movies. Yeah.
All right, guys, some big fight bookings, and my bad, we got to do a little catch up here, so we'll blast through these. Dvalishvili versus Jan, it's official, Goes at UFC 323 at the end of the year on December 6. That was the right fight booking, right? I know there was a few other names out there that maybe could have snuck their way in.
I'm good with it because it probably is the right guy. It's a rematch, and unfortunately, Dvalishvili is probably going to end up having a few of these. But this guy earned it the right way, the hard way. So I'm good with it.
Dvalishvili wanted it, and I thought maybe they could wait for Bautista and Nurmagomedov. Nurmagomedov just fought him this year. Bautista hasn't, and should he beat Nurmagomedov, I think a lot of us would be saying he should be fighting, but the UFC's got a schedule. Also on that card, Pantoja versus Van. Danny, talk about this one. No one's disputing this one. I think Joshua Van earned it. Remember he fought 3 times like in 1 month back in June?
Yeah.
Or 2 times in 3 weeks, sorry.
This is the fight we expected. I mean, since those two guys faced off, we knew that this was the fight that they were going to make, and it actually took a while for it to come to fruition. So finally we get it. I haven't been this excited for a flyweight championship bout in a good while. So yeah, this was a good one. I'm all for it.
On that same card, Nolan King, we have Brandon Moreno versus Tatsuro Taira at UFC 323, and Cejudo versus Talbot. Take one of those two. Which one excites you the most? These are top 10 guys facing each other for the right to maybe fight the champ and on the same timeline. That's always nice.
Yeah, I think they did a nice job with this card. Honestly, it's pretty deep. Like maybe the main and co-main. I think the co-main's got people excited. The main, having Marab on there is great, but I really like the depth. The Cejudo fight's weird. Again, the old versus young thing seems to be what the UFC is really hammering at this point. Like I can't remember the last time that we saw an aging vet get another aging vet. Like it just doesn't really happen, right? So that's kind of interesting to me. I think it's kind of a tough style fight for Peyton. So I guess there is that intrigue. And then Brandon Moreno versus Taira, that's my jam right there. I love that fight. So I'm going to lean with that one in terms of supporting act that I'm most excited for. That one's been set for a little bit, just hasn't been announced, but clearly has some implications for that title fight that's on the same card. I love when they do that.
That one's fire. That's a late contender for fight of the year. I could see Moreno and Tatsuro Taira putting on that type of show. All right, Danny, clear things up for us. Remember, we were all excited about Frankie Edgar's return to BKFC. It didn't happen. Finally, we heard from his side. He thought he got done a little bit, that maybe he was scheduled to make too much money. And at the end, they said, we're good. We're going to send you a lump sum, but we don't need you to fight. But he was a little bummed out. And I was a little bummed out. You know, Legends have got he's got some hands. You know, he's supposed to fight former UFC bantamweight Jimmy Rivera.
Yeah, this one was a weird one because, you know, they were going to New Jersey. Frankie Edgar just seemed like such a big piece for that whole card, right? He was certainly the biggest name there. And I got word about a week before the event that fight was canceled, but there was nothing really certain. Certainly from the part of the commission approved everything, and Frankie Edgar looked good in terms of all his medicals. That's confirmed, but apparently BKFC's doctor recommended them not to have Frankie Edgar on the card and not to fight. But it's like they listed certain reasons that just made no sense because those reasons were still present the day that they signed him. It's not like something new came up. So, it's hard to tell exactly what's the truth, but you kind of look at the situation and you can't help but think that Frankie's version is the one that makes the most sense. I don't know if they didn't sell tickets well or they weren't doing well financially or what it was, but it did seem like they kind of just used them as a promotional pawn. And then once it came down to fighting, they're like, hey, look, I don't think you should fight. And they ended up paying him a fraction of what he was supposed to be paid, I guess, for. Still, he worked for the promotion of the event, which still messed up because Frankie Edgar trained. He put a lot of work in. And yeah, it's just one of these situations where it's certainly not a good look on BKFC.
And he said all his medicals in and that he was fine, and that's why he got a little bit suspicious. But you know, it's weird because I really love BKFC and what they've added the last 10 years. Some great fights, a different format. You know, you got McGregor there. You're talking about a legend in Frankie Edgar. I mean, I'm not saying you're supposed to punk anyone, but you would think that, you know, hey, if you're going to take something serious to someone who's retired, take it serious, and see it through the end, regardless of how you did at the ticket box office. If in fact that's true, I can't confirm that's true or not true. Because you and I were in Anaheim when Nate Diaz boxed Jorge Masvidal. That looked like a profitable night for them. At least I don't know. I mean, the gate looked good. Who knows how many pay-per-views they sold or whatever? But George Masvidal finally got $5 million from Famio.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there
because he got underpaid.
Right. There were no empty seats in that place. It was popping from the get-go. Southern California they get there like right before. They were there pretty early. It was a good card. I felt like a lot of people were talking about it on social media. Hopefully they bought it. So for him to not get paid, fighters don't deserve to go through those types of things. And in boxing, sometimes that can happen, but not to the extent of selling out the Honda Center. I don't know if they sold it out, but they probably came close. I'm glad that he's going to get his money. He deserved it.
Yeah, it was a good fight, man. But he did get his $5 million. Sometimes we don't hear about these stories where the fighters actually wind up winning. In California, staying in California, Nolan King, the California State Athletic Commission unanimously votes to support the Muhammad Ali American Boxing Revival Act 6-0. And there was a lot of ex-fighters against it, a lot of big names for it. Can you talk about that? Please.
Yeah, I was on the call, and it was probably one of the more fascinating things that I've covered. It was a little bit, it was interesting to see the approach that the California State Athletic Commission came with. Like, there was a lot of bouncing around at the beginning in terms of like, oh, do you want to explain the process we went through for this motion that we're going to make? And then it seemed like it was kind of hot potato, like nobody wanted to actually say what it was that they were going to motion for. And
talk about it.
One of the commissioners started talking, finally takes the lead, and he starts talking about how there's been a lot of people consulted, including LL Cool J, who we recently had a phone call with. It was so combat sportsy in terms of just the randomness. And then you add in kind of like the public comment section that was like the Royal Rumble of like, who's gonna speak next? Like, you have no idea, right? So they went to Nick Khan, they went to Chris Lieben, they went to Big John McCarthy, I think was one that caught a lot of people's attention. He kind of came on and started accusing people that were against the bill, to saying that they had financial interests, and that's why they were trying to push back against the Muhammad Ali Act, was because that they were going to make money from it somehow. I was very surprised to hear that. And then it started to kind of go towards, the ex-fighters, the ones that we've seen be associated, a lot of the same ones from the settlement that came through the antitrust, right? So you got like, Nate Corey was on the call. You had Pat Barry was on it for a while. He was his time expired, so I don't think we ever got to his point. But there was, I tweeted out like a list of the names that were there, and I think it was about 2/3 of the people that spoke were against it, and 1/3 of the people were in favor of it. And so I don't know. It was interesting. It did seem like Matt Brown was another one that had a pretty impassioned speech, and he kind of was riffing a little bit. Like, he very much did not have anything prepared. And he was just, at one point, he was just kind of like, what the hell? Like, why are you guys doing this? Like, you guys already have your mind made up. So a lot of pushback from the fighters. There were no boxers on there. There was one amateur boxer who was a 17-year-old kid who gave a very, very, like, regardless of what side of the whole thing you're on, very educated take, like just very prepared, very succinct, was against it. And so I don't know. It was very interesting to see it all play out. And then, of course, when the vote came, it was just 6-0. It was over. I do think that the minds were made up before that public comment, and it was just kind of a little bit of a, I don't want to say a show, but something that procedurally needed to take place. And yeah, so they've recommended it. They've supported it. This doesn't have really any direct impact on like the bill getting passed, but it definitely is something that TKO and the lobbyists can have in their pocket to say, look, at the biggest state, that runs the most amount of fights in the United States, one of the most that has one of the biggest commissions, if not the biggest commission, is supporting this. So I think that's a big feather in their cap, but it doesn't necessarily, for those that are maybe unfamiliar with this process, this isn't like, oh, it passed through, the House or anything. This is just a major supporter signing on to the bill.
They're big amendments.
Okay, don't forget that.
LL Cool J.
It's funny how all the people against it are the ones that actually fight, and then the people that want to see it passed are not the ones that are fighting.
Right.
It's crazy. It's madness, dude. This could really, if this were to go all the way, this would completely change that sport, man. It's a sport that a lot of people grew up loving, and I don't want to see it go down that route.
Yeah.
Basically, Zuffa Boxing wants I think what at the top of all this is their rights to crown their own champions, right, Nolan?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a little bit like that. I mean, essentially, what they, what it would be getting
No
rid of.
sanctioning
They would be able. They say, okay, it's obviously very complicated, but they say, hey, we're giving fighters a choice. They can either fight within the Muhammad Ali Act or they're not. But really, it's a little bit more complicated than that, right? What you would be, the Muhammad Ali Act uses UBOs. This would allow the UFC to operate outside those. There would be minimum payments per round. The boxers would have to be paid. Like that's kind of the argument for it. And then the one against it would be, hey, now the UFC can kind of sign these guys to these long contracts. They can put in their own titles. They can get guys that are younger, to jump in and then extend for a long period of time. So it's a lot of the similar stuff that led to the antitrust case was the concerns that the fighters were voicing here. And like you said, while you were talking, I was just pulling up my list here, and which I had tweeted out. And yeah, I think everybody that endorsed it was either somebody that worked for the commission in some capacity, past or present, or somebody that worked for TKO. And then there were a couple other, there was one boxing promoter from Michigan, a couple of people that used their initials. I think one person said they were a fan, and I don't think the other person ever identified themselves. And then, yeah, it's the whole oppositions were a lot of, a couple media people, a few people involved with the MMA FA, and then just a laundry list of ex-fighters from Todd Duffy to Sarah McMahon to Carlos Newton to Cajun Johnson that were opposed. So it was very interesting to see that line drawn, and then just for it to be essentially like, oh, thank you for your time. Okay, we're going to take a vote now. And then they just passed it.
Jeez, what a circus. I think the only ones that didn't call in were the Burger King guy and Snooki from New Jersey Shore. Sounds like. All right. Listen, guys, real quick. I'm just going to blast through some of this news. Dana White Contender Series Season 9 is in the books. So that's why we're back at our normal start time, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific going forward. Please hit the like button. It helps us out a ton. Right now would be nice as I transition into our last topic. I'm a big fan of Dana White Contender Series, but I'll miss it. We got to wait 42 weeks before it comes back. I've always thought they should have a winter season, 5 weeks only, but whatever. Anderson Silva and Chris Weidman signed to box, not MMA. Yes, I think Anderson Silva is almost 50, but I think I want to watch this one. He wants to get his against Chris Weidman. Dana White did tell us at the last week of Dana White Contender Series, he is open to Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira for BMF. And his name came up earlier. Big John McCarthy is returning to reffing. I recommend you check out our interview with him. It's on this YouTube channel, which you should subscribe to, youtube.com/MMA Junkie video. The reason I'm saying it is because some of you are watching through Facebook. So you can go to the YouTube channel, subscribe. Lots of great content there. And there's going to be a lot of great content this week, guys, because it's Fight Week. UFC 321 is this weekend. What's your excitement level, Danny Segura, for Abu Dhabi, where the UFC's got 2 title fights and a pretty sick main card?
Yeah, I like this one a lot. I would say my excitement level right now is at a 8.5, which is a pretty solid one.
Okay, nice. You're starting to round out the numbers a little bit. I like it.
Sure.
How about you, Nolan King? We finally get a proper undisputed champ who wants to stay active and wants to be a legend, do something with this division that's kind of been stagnant the last few years for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, I'm a strong 8 right now as well. I think this is a good card. It's deep. After going through a few fight nights that were kind of average or a little bit sub average, to then go into a card like this where there's very impactful fights. I mean, you got a heavyweight title fight, you've got a strawweight championship, 2 divisions that have been kind of stagnant. Now we get to figure out what's going on with them. And then you have, an important fight with Umar, like where does he fit in the division against Batista? You have a number 1 contender fight at heavyweight likely between Volkov and Chilton. So again, just seeing fights that really mean a lot to the divisions is really refreshing, and specifically to get, as you said, George, that heavyweight division moving again after what seems like years of there being kind of frustration and stop and go and delays. So the Tom Aspinall era, if it isn't already here, has officially arrived. And I'm actually kind of excited for this fight. I'm more excited for it than I thought when it was announced, or when John retired and this was going to be the next one. I'm looking forward to this.
Don't hide the big story here, Nolan. It's also a day card, so.
Yes, sir. Some coffee and some fights, nothing better. Yeah.
I'm all for that.
That's right. The East Coasters are loving it. The main card starts at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on Saturday. They are going live from where they're at, not at the usual pay-per-view start time of 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And Goes and I will be doing a watch along that morning. At least count on the main card. I haven't been told yet if we're coming for the early prelims. If so, we'll be there at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. Goes, your excitement level. Assign it a number. What do you got?
8.3. I don't like these round numbers. Danny, don't do that anymore. You're always at 8.3.
It's a day card. We'll have Saturday night off to socialize and live a regular life.
I love seeing Tom Aspinall fight. I think maybe seeing Gane in this situation over and over when it was first announced, it was kind of like, but the card itself, if you have that many numbers at the end of fighters' names, it's a good thing. It's always a good thing. It's going to tell a story. I'm in.
I think Aspinall is going to look so good that one of the UFC employees is going to walk up to Dana White and say, "We told you, stupid. Like we could have been here 2 years ago." You know what I'm saying? With a champ that wants to fight and lead the division and have the title of the baddest man on the planet. I mean, ever since Francis left, it's just been, of course, I respect John Jones, and he did win a couple fights, but not the fights we wanted, not the fights that made sense. So I'm really pumped up. I sure hope Ciryl Gane doesn't ruin the party, but he might. You never know, because it's 4-ounce gloves, and that's why we tune in. Damn it, I'm giving it a 9. I'm excited right now. I wish the fights were this weekend. It could be that I'm on my 4th cup of coffee. Who knows? But let's get into it. What's your prediction, Danny Segura, Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane? Are you as confident as I am?
Very well. I don't know how confident you are, but
I think Aspinall's gonna light him up. He's a first-round knockout machine, man.
Submission.
Yeah.
Look, if John Jones was able to take him down with ease and sub him, I think Tom Aspinall being bigger and honestly, I just think he's a better fighter than John Jones at this point. I think he should be able to do the exact same thing, if not look more dominant against Ciryl Gane. So give me Tom Aspinall. That's the biggest lock on this card.
Nolan, future sequence in the chat says Aspinall's a lock. Joseph Boza, however, pushes back. He says he thinks Ciryl has a chance. He thinks I'm tripping a little bit. I'm a little overconfident. How about you?
I think he certainly has a chance, right? This is heavyweight. But I tend to agree that I see Gane being able to survive. I don't think it's going to be one of these situations like the John fight where he gets taken down and submitted. But I do think that he'll be out grappled, and I do think that Aspinall will get a submission, maybe late 3rd, early 4th round, something like that in the deeper waters. So that's going to be my prediction.
Fresh Melon Juice is saying if we get to round 2 goes, Aspinall has already lost the fight. He thinks he's got a little RDR in him where all of a sudden he falls off a cliff. And by the way, this is a great post here in the chat. Don Vito says, you already know that Jones has a tweet in the drafts. And Aspinall loses.
8 tweets?
And I agree, 50. Man. I agree. He's already carving it out. He's a swagger jacker, that guy. Because spotlight ain't on him. Him and McGregor are always hitting up the tweets. Goes, what do you think, man? You think Aspinall's got a little bit of that in him? I think he's probably a strong fighter through 25 rounds, though. Who would know, right?
Yeah, that's the problem, right? Reps. But I kind of almost agree with everyone. Personally, I think Tom's going to beat him. But I do see ways that Ciryl Gane can be annoying a little bit, keep the distance. But, I mean, Aspinall's so explosive and so quick that I don't think he'd have problems getting around that. He'd make that adjustment very quickly. So I have Aspinall winning this one. But I do think Gane has ways to make it tricky a little bit.
Anshul Jubilee's gas station says he's already betting Tom Aspinall round 1 finish prop. He did it as soon as it came out. He is confident. Let's talk about the other title fight, Verna Jandiroba against Mackenzie Dern. So you guys heard me say Zhang Weili is moving up to fight Valentina Shevchenko at UFC 322 in New York in about 3 weeks. And so that created a vacancy because now the UFC makes you basically give up the title if you move up. Case in point, Islam Makhachev, Alexander Ilya Topuria. So yeah, this is for the vacant title, Danny Segura. They fought before. Dern beat her, but Jandiroba is the one that's kind of on a roll.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. I'm a big fan of Mackenzie Dern. I've been for a while, even before she joined the UFC. Like her LFA days, like I was always like, man, this girl's bound to be a champion. And she certainly had a lot of success in MMA, but that's also come with a lot of sort of setbacks as well. But still, the promise has always been there, and you do wonder, oh, is it gonna, is she gonna be able to become that UFC champion that everyone thought that she would be? Well, now's her chance, so I'm excited to see this fight. I think grappling wise is going to be exciting. I think both these ladies have improved a ton since the last fought. And yeah, I'm excited for this one. And if Mackenzie Dern becomes champion, you really do wonder what her sort of star potential is, right? And yeah, we talk about how women's MMA has kind of sucked, to be honest, in the last few years. Well, here we get a chance to kind of revamp things and give it another go. And let's see if we can sort of raise some more hype and attention for women's fighting.
She's got charisma and that smile, and she can speak both languages. I think she'd be a big champion for the UFC. How about you, Nolan? Are we discounting Verna Jandiroba a bit much? I think she's the favorite coming in. I know she's got that L, but that was a few years ago, and she's on a 5-fight win streak.
Yeah, I think she's pretty underrated at this point. She is somebody that has really put in the blue-collar effort to get in this position, right? She's somebody, when we talk about fighters not all being created equal in terms of how much they have to really earn the title shot. And she has certainly done that. She has forced the UFC to put her in this position, kind of, especially with her most recent performances. I think she's looked great. So I'm actually leaning towards her. I think it's a very close fight. I'm not really sure. I mean, the fact that they are both so skilled on the ground is very interesting to me. It's do we see those sort of, those exchanges on the ground? Does it kind of even out and then it's more of a striking battle? I think those are questions that remain to be seen, but I am going to lean with Verna. I think she's looked better in recent fights. Mackenzie's looked up and down, kind of inconsistent. She'll take 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, 1 step forward, so I am going to lean with Verna, but I think it's a very close fight. I'm going to say it'll go the distance either way.
I'm not sure what you mean. Is she doing the running man inside or what? 2 steps forward? All right, goes. All of you, I want you to answer this one. Can either one of these young ladies fill the shoes of Zhang Weili? Now, let me just throw a couple things out there. When Zhang Weili won, oh my God, 1.3 billion people. She's going to blow up. But guys, she doesn't fight too often. All respect to her. She is a beast. She's a unit. She's well put together. She's learned English, but she doesn't fight very often. I don't know that the fights have been, I don't know that she's caught on like I thought she would. So how would you answer the question? Can the winner fill in the shoes of Zhang Weili?
Well, it depends who, right? Like you guys just said, Mackenzie Dern can be a star. I don't know that she could hold on to the title though, the way Zhang Weili did. Like Zhang Weili was a complete force. Okay. I just don't, I couldn't see Verna Jandiroba filling those shoes. And even Mackenzie Dern might be a stretch because the big thing about Zhang Weili is the win. She doesn't stop winning. She's very, very dominant in the way she does it. And like Nolan said, there's times where Mackenzie Dern's up and down, up and down. So I'm going to lean towards no.
All right, let's check in with the top reporters from MMA Junkie. You guys sometimes get to see a lot of the traffic that maybe goes and I don't. Does she pop on fight night? Her traffic, her star power? Are we missing something here? Nolan, you go first, then Danny.
I think she's fought so many times that we don't necessarily see like as much traffic as you might think. But I mean, again, there's more interest in her. Everything's relative, right? So I'm interested. I don't really know what like the star potential is because she's been around for so long. But she's somebody that certainly has interest. She has a lot, obviously, great ground skills. She's been around for a while, and she's somebody the UFC could promote across multiple countries. So I see that obviously there's potential there, but I don't think she's somebody that's like gonna, break any sort of numbered records or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. How are you feeling about all this, Danny? She might move up and lose, and now she doesn't have no belts. And again, if she's the one leading the charge in China, something would be amiss here. So maybe that's the problem I might have with the UFC's new policy.
Look, but back to the other question real quick. But if Mackenzie Dern becomes champion, I think that'll be absolutely huge for the UFC. She has twice as much following as Zhang Weili on Instagram, which is probably the most international or widely used social media platform. But sorry, remind me of the question again.
Yeah, no, just can either one of them fill in the shoes of?
Yeah,
of Zhang Weili, and you know, am I underestimating her star power? Because remember, there is a
Maybe, yeah.
possibility she could move up, lose, and now she's not a champ anywhere.
I mean, we also have to keep keep in mind that we have certain biases, obviously, because we live on the Western hemisphere. So we don't know how popular she is. At least I personally don't know how popular she is in China. But again, from what I've seen, like, she hasn't really done a ton, like, at least from here in the Americas. Like, people like her. She's a great fighter, but she doesn't really talk trash. She doesn't fight often. And some of her fights are badass. Obviously, the one with Jacek was amazing, but some others can be kind of, not so exciting. I think Mackenzie Dern would bring far more attention to the division than Zhang Weili. Now, on the flip side, if Virna Jandiroba were to win, I do think that that wouldn't be a good result for the UFC, but promotionally wise, because Virna, she looks very, very, very sweet person. She's obviously a skilled fighter, but she doesn't carry that aura that Mackenzie does. So, or Zhang Weili does as well. So I think if Mackenzie wins here, I think that'd be a stellar result for the UFC. I mean, when's the last time you saw Mark Zuckerberg go to, and he's an avid fan of MMA, go to an Apex show? He only did that to watch Mackenzie Dern fight. So, I mean, she definitely pulls in a crowd,
Yeah. All right. I just want to share this with you guys real quick. At the Fan Expo, I had a chance to interview her, and I asked her, "Are you ready for the champ now?" Because the champ was still the champ back then. And I really could appreciate her humility. She goes, "No, I still need a little bit more seasoning." So she was thinking maybe one more fight, possibly two, and then, like, she paid respect to the champ, and she kept herself, humble. But now the champ's out of the way, and now she is fighting for the title. So hopefully that confidence is there for Virna, who she has beaten once. But again, the tides have turned here in the last few years. Virna's on a roll. Let's talk about a big fight out there happening in the featured bout: Umar Nurmagomedov against Mario Batista. Does the winner possibly get a title shot? And let me clarify, for the winner of Merab Dvalishvili and Peter Yan, which has already been made. Back to you, Goes. What do you think, man?
I think it's possible, yeah. Umar, let's be honest, like that, I thought that was a lot closer fight than a lot of people say. I think a second try could be very interesting. And then even if it doesn't go his way, Batista, I feel like, how many of these rematches are we going to watch? I mean, I know it's playing out that way, and it probably should, but I kind of want to see somebody fresh with a different style go after Merab if he is the winner. And I think Batista's style could be interesting for that.
You don't want to see O'Malley and Merab 3 if O'Malley can get past Nico?
Nah, I'm good.
Okay. Nolan, how about this one, man? This is a big bantamweight fight. And how about this guy's like Johnny Lunchpail? Batista's kind of taking the slow road, right? Punching the clock. But if he can get past Nurmi, I think he's arrived.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a half of a title eliminator here going on, right? Like we talked about with Virna having to take that blue collar approach. I almost wonder if Batista wins, like if he goes out there, he kind of does his thing. If he's still going to have to fight again, it will really depend on what options are out there. If Merab gets through Yan and Umar gets through Batista, I think that's a no-brainer. Like, there's no bigger fight in the division in terms of popularity, in terms of interest. They fought once before, and it was very close. Umar gave Merab a lot of problems. So I think if he wins, I don't want to say he's a lock, but I would say almost certainly he is. If Batista wins, he's going to be in that conversation as well. But I think things get a little bit more tricky. And I still, this isn't something that's brought up a ton, but I would say that if Pantoja gets through Van, I would be very much in favor of if he would go up to 35 and fight Merab. I'm not a big fan of guys making jumps, but I think when you got two guys that cleared out divisions like this, which would be the case if those two fights happen the way that I think they're going to happen. I don't know. I have to think about that flyweight one a little bit more, but I think that would be a fight that would be very interesting as well.
Man, what about Manel Kape?
Yeah, I mean, flyweight's interesting right now. But the thing with him is he's just not been consistent, right? Like, we've seen him have this resurgence where he looks like the guy we always hope, but injuries, opponent injuries, all sorts of nonsense has kind of prevented that from him having the strongest case that he could have.
Danny, I saw you perking up when the thought of if Pantoja wins, he could derail. Any possible plans for a Mario Batista opening, or perhaps Nurmagomedov getting a rematch? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, this is going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out. I definitely agree that the biggest fight you could make would be Pantoja versus Merab Dvalishvili, at least for the hardcores. Like, those guys are extremely underrated. They're not, blockbuster fighters, but like the hardcores know that when you're watching them fight, you're seeing world-class MMA, and you're seeing the peak of MMA talent right now today in 2025. So if they keep winning and defending their belts, dude, I feel like you do have to make that fight happen at some point. I'm very much a proponent for it, but yes.
Oh, you might have froze.
If Batista were to win, dude, he's done so much that, like, you have to give the fight to him as well. And, same can be said about Moreno and Taira. Like, they're both deserving should they get a win. So that whole dynamic is going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting, too. The questions, because there's so many possible angles here, the type of questions that these fighters are going to get in the lead up.
By the way, I'm more interested in Merab versus Volk, and I'm not suggesting it should happen, but I'm more interested in that than Pantoja going up, because when Pantoja's been asked about it before, he didn't seem that pumped. But I guess at some point you start lapping the division, you got to do something. Maybe more money might motivate him.
Don't you think there's more to prove with the other two, though? Pantoja's an incredible run, Merab's incredible run.
Well, yeah, but I mean, Volk's had an incredible run too.
But GGB tripping. Let's get that going. Come on,
GGB tripping. You might be tripping, George.
But that ain't that crazy. Come on, chat. Well, are you more interested in Merab versus Volk or Pantoja versus Merab? I mean, Merab, he's become this machine, and all of a sudden it just looks like he doesn't back down from anything, man. The side of a mountain, a heavyweight, a fellow, 2 bantamweights. So in one night he'll do it. It just seems like he wants to test himself more. Huh?
Volk had losses. These other two guys were like, what will it take for somebody to beat either guy? That kind of solves that question, right?
True. All right.
And I would say the difference for me is the fact that I think there's a few hungry featherweights that Volkanovski has not fought yet. So you'd essentially be putting those guys on either on ice or having everybody round robin eliminate each other, which is where I start to get bugged by super fights.
Well, aren't you three just full of answers then, huh? Ganging up on the old guy here. I feel like I'm getting jumped in an alley. Yeah. No one was feeling me. I was leaving the fist bump. I thought maybe Nolan might save me, but he was with you.
If we did dump you in the alley, it'd be a ground fight because you'd be tripping.
All right. Alexander Volkov versus Jailton Almeida. Is this a title eliminator, Danny Segura?
I think so. And man, Volkov's got to be looking at that main event and be pissed, because we all saw him beat Cyril Gane. Man. And here he is fighting below them and not for the belt, obviously. Look, I think if he wins, there aren't too many exciting contenders, but at the end of the day, the division has to move on. Title fights need to be made. So I do think that the winner here should probably get the next shot.
All right. It's a deep card. And again, Goz and I will be doing a watch along starting at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific for the main card. Guaranteed we'll be doing that. We might even duck in early for the prelims. We're sorting that out right now. Guys, real quick, about 30 seconds each. Any thoughts on the passing of Duke Roufus? I'm sure all 4 of us here at some point dealt with the man. You know, he had a huge camp, world champions, an incredible impact on the sport. Gone too soon at age 55. We'll start with you, Nolan.
Yeah, just a shame. You know, you think of all the great fighters that have gone through that gym, and just seeing all the posts, you know, when the news broke from all the different guys that he had coached throughout the years. I mean, Sergio and Anthony Pettis, Ben Askren, Tyron Woodley, Paul Felder. I mean, you even go back, right? Like Ben Rothwell, Matt Mitrione, the names go, Macy Barber, right? Brendan Allen for a while there. So many fighters have gone through his gym. You know, even guys that didn't do their entire careers there seem to point to a period of time at Roufus Sport that really helped them turn a corner. So he was, by all accounts, a great guy, a good leader, somebody that really revolutionized coaching to a degree in the Midwest. You know, CM Punk, obviously, you see there too, who I saw wrote Duke's hands on his hand wraps over in when he was doing wrestling over in Japan over the weekend. So just a lot of love, a lot of respect for the guy, and seeing Anthony and Sergio Pettis, their posts in particular, I thought were heartbreaking. So Just a shame that the combat sports world lost a real coaching legend. He had quite the kickboxer as well. Don't forget that.
Former world champion kickboxer. Yeah, Danny Segura, some words about Duke.
Yeah, terrible loss for the MMA community, and obviously my heart goes out to his family and all his closest people. And this was a guy that, like, not only was he a great coach, as Nolan mentioned, but something also that like stuck out to me was also he was a very good person. Like, people really liked him, and he had a lot of empathy, which is something that in such a brutal sport is hard to find. But a memory that kind of just stands out is when he was coaching Anthony Pettis in the fight against Tony Ferguson, and Anthony Pettis broke his hand, and he pulled the fight. He's like, no, you're not stepping out there. And how many coaches have we seen just, for that second paycheck, just send their fighters out there to see if they can get a Hail Mary? And I remember at the time when I was working at MMA Fighting, we had him on a show that we were doing. And the way he explained his decision making is like, I love this guy. Like, Tony Ferguson's an absolute killer. Like, I'm not gonna send him out handicapped without a hand to just get destroyed. Like, I care too much about this guy to do that to him. And I know he wanted to keep fighting, but I wasn't gonna let that happen. And he called the fight. So all in all, yeah, terrible loss, and rest in peace, Duke Roufus.
Goes.
Yeah, I think, all the accolades, everything that he's done coaching wise and even competing, it's all there. What people don't know is the effect that he's had on his fighters personally and how he's helped them in their personal lives. The guy had time for everyone. And when he was on our show, I remember almost looking forward for not the interview, but just the chat before and the chat after. We would sit back and, I mean, George, you can attest, we'd sit there for almost an hour, almost doing a second show, just talking to him about not just mixed martial arts, but life and other sports. The guy had time for everyone. There's not very many people like him, and he had a big heart. He's going to be missed massively.
Yeah, for sure. For Duke, it wasn't just in passing. It was the moment, and that was his moment to talk to you as someone, a fellow MMA media person, in our case, a radio show host. But then after that, he wanted to know about you, how you were doing. It wasn't just that transaction of like, thank you for interviewing my fighter, we're now on our way. No, how are you doing? He valued making you're a contact and an acquaintance than like a friend, and that's how I felt like around him, like as a friend. He cared about you and he wanted to know more about you. Fellow soccer fan too. You saw him wearing the Celtic kit. Root for them in the next game and pour one out and drink one for the coach. He definitely will be missed. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to Spinning Back Clique. We're back to our normal start time. If on the way out you could hit the like button, that would be tremendous. And don't forget about the watch along this week. And our Farah Hanoun will be in Abu Dhabi. She'll have a lot of coverage, so kindly consider subscribing to the channel. Welcome back, Cold Coffee. Folks, we are out of here. Go out and be a champion. Rest in peace, Coach.